And so I take the world within my game, apply this ambient occlusion depth-based texture map to the world, and boom, you have a beautiful sense of depth. Hello everybody, and welcome back to Soulveyor devlog number 11. This week I actually went insane. I initially started working on improving the player's movement, specifically allowing them to finally climb up the stairs. As you can see here, and if you can hear it as well, as I walk up the stairs, see I'm walking from left to right. Beep, 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 beep. The player actually walks up the stairs, and there's a slight tiling issue where that doesn't actually get tiled, but the point is the player can now walk up and down the stairs. Look at that. The player is actually walking up the stairs. Hear that? Beep, 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 beep. This isn't like a faked sorting or layering thing. They are literally moving up the stairs, and so any stairs they encounter, like these stairs over here, you can walk up and down the whole world. There are a couple more things to iron out. If you can see, the player is still kind of floating and they slowly move back down. The same thing happens when they walk up the stairs. See, they're kind of floating a little bit and then they move back down. And this is because when the player is moving up or down, they still retain that angular velocity, and so that they basically overshoot the stairs a little bit and have to float back down. And the same thing happens when going down the stairs. You overshoot the stairs and you kind of actually end up like floating downwards instead. So I'll clean up that stuff, and let me set it today. So let me set the time. And it's also important to note that the player can't accidentally slip off the sides or walk through the sides of the stairs. I had to spend some time working on the colliders for that, which leads me into the colliders. Wait, nope. I disabled the collider and now the player is falling through the world. And I know you can only see the pink here, but the pink outlines the colliders of the world. So this would be the walkable terrain, and it's kind of tough to see, but I can basically disable the floor and you can now see the wall colliders as well, and the edge tiles. And you can't see it from this view here, but there is a sloped mesh collider here instead. So instead of just like a flat floor tile, it's a sloped tile to the east. In this case, it's the east stairs, so it'll place a sloped tile in that direction. And I'll also be using this mesh later on for pathfinding as well, so things will be able to walk up the stairs. Like the deer I made the other week, I can import the deer, and the deer will be able to climb up the stairs and navigate around the water properly. The next thing I did was take a look at this. Ready? Look what happens when I walk behind this tree. Beep. You can see the silhouette of the player. So this is awesome. I've been meaning to do this for a little while, and in the past I have it disabled now, but I used to have the trees or any really tall object. When the player walked behind it, it would simply make the tree transparent. But so I've done away with that, and now whenever anything is obstructing the player's view for whatever reason, it simply highlights the player. And so you can even see the player at night, and I even gave it a little bit of a glow. And I can also change this to whatever color I want. I just happen to, okay, that looks pretty cool. I just happen to set it to red because I think red is probably the most like standy outy color of them all, because I want you to clearly be able to see the player wherever they are, whatever they're behind. I want the player to always be visible and not get lost in the scene. Okay, ignore this massive test object, but as you see, as I come down here to this wall, you can see me even through the wall. You can see the player's legs, so you see where they're going. So this is amazing and so much better than having the transparent tree system or the transparent object system, because with that transparent system, there's no real possible way of making these walls transparent. Because if you think about it, sure, for objects like these, if I implemented that transparent collider that makes the object go transparent when you walk behind it or come into contact with it, I can't really do that for these walls, because these walls are wall tiles. So I would have to, if I did it that way, pick this individual wall tile to make it transparent, but then that would end up breaking immersion because only that exact tile would be transparent. So I can't do that. And okay, well, I guess I can make the whole wall transparent, but the problem with that is then the whole layer is transparent and it destroys immersion that way. So there's no like easy way and reliable way to just simply make these walls transparent or to allow you to see the player through the walls. So this is the perfect solution for that. Simply always show the player through objects. I have a couple more tweaks to make with this, because as you can see here, if I zoom in, if it's raining outside, any rain particles that go in front of the player also turn red because that's doing what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to always show the player. However, this looks a little, and if I'm holding a bigger item, it looks like bloody rain all of a sudden, which doesn't make sense. So I think I'll just have a separate sorting layer so that particles like weather particles or leaf particles or small things won't obstruct the player's view. So you won't get these red bits of rain just randomly showing up in front of the player. Ooh, another cool thing I did this week. This week is just jam-packed with updates. Check this out. Player, ready? Get ready for this. I am moving the player into the water pool, and check this out. Look at the player. The player actually gets their own foam of water. Now the player's kind of just falling slowly. There we go. Now he's walking. I'm literally walking on the bottom of the water. And so if I have an item in my hand as well, look at this. The item also gets its little foam. In the leaf too. Did you see the leaf? The leaf just passed right through it. Look at that. So whatever item I'm holding, the water bucket scoop, or this smelter right here, it all gets its own like foam level. It all interacts with the water, which is just a really cool little effect. And this was actually much more complicated than it looks. Like this was not a very simple change. I actually had to redo the player's animations. You can't really tell because I made the animations look the same as they were before, but I had to completely redo the player's layering structure, and I had to make each player's component, like their head, their chest, the chest plate, on its own separate layer so that they could all interact with this foam or whatever transparent object happens to be there. So this is really cool. I might add the ability to walk in the water, and I might add like some stairs maybe that go down into the water so you can like walk in the water puddle and stuff. But I just think that looks really cool. And now I've been saving the best for last. The biggest change of the week, which I did not think I'd be making at all this week, but it happened, is, get ready for it, ambient occlusion in a 2D game. Ooh, okay, check this out. This is the scene before ambient occlusion is applied. Pay close attention. Okay, so I pause the game and I turn the shadows around to the other side so you can see this effect better. So this is without ambient occlusion, and this is with ambient occlusion. A subtle change, but if you look closer at these walls, look at this. Towards the bottom of the wall, it's slightly more shaded. These are shadows within shadows. Let me disable ambient occlusion and re-enable ambient occlusion. Do you see that? The shadows where the stones meet the ground are slightly darker. And the whole point of this is to make it so that edges and stuff are much more distinguishable from just flat tiles, because I noticed a problem during midday, for example, when the shadows are perfectly aligned behind objects, it would make things like these corner tiles and these sideways tiles right here, it would make it much more difficult to see where these side tiles actually meet the ground. And so somebody just looking at this, for example, without ambient occlusion, you see this is much more difficult, especially zoomed in. Oh, okay, that looks really good. This is much more difficult, especially zoomed in, to see where the wall actually meets the ground. And you see, without the proper shadow angle, aka without the proper time of day, it makes it much more difficult to see that this wall is actually standing and not touching the ground. You see this kind of just blends. You see this kind of just like completely blends flush with the ground, and it doesn't like look right. You can't tell that this is a wall. But let me go ahead and re-enable ambient occlusion, and now it's a very slight change. But if you pay attention to the core grass tiles, ready? I'm disabling ambient occlusion. The lighting and the color don't change on the center grass tiles, but everything towards the edges gets a slight shadow, and it's much more noticeable in shadows like these when I enable, disable, enable, disable. You get that slight shadow brim, and I know it's kind of tough to see from far away, but this gives the world so much more depth. And it's even more noticeable if I go ahead and disable the water. Take a look at this. So if I zoom into the water, so the shadows are getting cast behind and into this empty pond here. But you see this? Look at this. You can't really tell at all where this pond ends. I mean, yeah, we can infer that, okay, this is probably the ground. It looks like it's about one tile high, like a one tile high pond. But if I zoom in, you cannot tell at all when this starts or stops, look at this right here. It's just one long strip. But with ambient occlusion, boom, now you can clearly see, oh, whoa, it gets darker. It gets darker the closer we get to the bottom of the pond. And so you see, you can clearly see that, oh yeah, the pond is one tile. And so this really just adds that extra bit of depth to the world. And so I take the world within my game, apply this ambient occlusion depth-based texture map to the world, and boom, you have a beautiful sense of depth. And again, keep in mind, ambient occlusion is most noticeable when you are already in a shadow. So if I go ahead and flip the shadows again, you can much more clearly see it, especially where the wall meets the floor. And so this is a scuffed manual 360. Okay, at this exact angle, it looks like somebody threw a flashbang in the world. So this concludes this week's You Laugh, You Lose challenge. If you laughed, you lost. So that means you are legally obligated to like this video 0.3 times. That is all I have for you this week. Stay tuned for next week where I teach you all how to put on glasses. Stay hydrated.